Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Melanie Cassar, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Lieutenant Colonel Nick Floyd. This year marks the 150th anniversary of the raising of the first permanent battery of artillery in Australia. Today, the 4th of December, marks the Feast of St Barbara, who is considered the patron saint of gunners and artillery across the world. It is a date of symbolic significance to all units and gunners, serving and retired, across all states and territories, to celebrate and commemorate the role of the Royal Australian Artillery. We warmly welcome the family of Brigadier Shirley Thomas William Goodwin, who are watching the live stream of this evening's ceremony. His story will be told shortly. We are honoured to acknowledge Brigadier Richard Vagg, Head of Regiment, Royal Regiment of the Australian Artillery, and Major General Michael Crane, retired. We also acknowledge the past and present members of the Royal Regiment of Australian Artillery who are attending today's last post ceremony. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was a vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where family and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Brigadier Shirley Thomas William Goodwin. Shirley Goodwin was born in Ballarat, Victoria, on the 6th of February 1894, the son of John and Harriet Goodwin. His father, who held a commission in the Victorian Military Forces from 1891, was later known as Colonel Goodwin. Having trained as a surveyor, he became Commonwealth Surveyor General and played a significant role in the development of Canberra, with periods serving as officer in charge of the Federal Capital Administration, chairman of the Canberra Advisory Council, as a local magistrate, an elected member of the Federal Capital Territory Advisory Council, a board member of the Canberra Community Hospital, and a member of the National Capital Planning and Development Committee. As the Territory's coroner, he would conduct the coronial inquest into the 1940 Canberra air disaster, which killed 10 people, including 3 cabinet members and the Army's Chief of the General Staff. Shirley Goodwin and his brothers, John and Howard, grew up in Victoria, where he attended Camberwell Grammar School in Melbourne's east. In 1911, Goodwin was a staff cadet in the first class to enter Royal Military College, Duntroon. While he was eventually discharged for unsatisfactory progress in his studies and physical exercises, he would go on to have an exceptional military career. Goodwin was serving in the Australian Field Artillery when he joined the Australian Imperial Force in August 1914. Appointed second lieutenant, on the 20th of October he embarked for overseas service with the 2nd Field Artillery Brigade. Having been promoted in Egypt, Lieutenant Goodwin landed on Gallipoli with the covering force on the 25th of April 1915, coming ashore at about 7:30 a.m. to spot for the floating naval batteries of the Royal Navy. In July, Goodwin was attached to the 8th and then the 6th Battery of the 2nd Field Artillery Brigade. In September and early October, he spent time at a rest camp in Lemnos Island before rejoining the 6th Battery on Gallipoli. The following month, he was mentioned in the brigade's war diary with a note that he and another officer were specially mentioned in my report. Their gallant service should receive recognition. On the 19th of November, Goodwin was transferred to Imbros Island, where he was attached to the Royal Naval Air Service, acting as an aeroplane observer. On the 20th of December, the morning following the evacuation of Anzac and Suvla, Goodwin and pilot Flight Sub-Lieutenant Frank Besson made for the peninsula to look for troop movements. Goodwin later recalled, "Owing to heavy low clouds, we were unable to proceed over the lines and had to reconnoitre from the sea. At a distance of about a mile from the shore, the engine failed. The pilot immediately turned towards Imbros, but we had not made it more than a mile before we struck the water. We both had air belts, but that of my pilot deflated soon after descent. The aeroplane sank after about 10 minutes. Though I had wireless for help, none appeared. We made for the Turkish shore, hoping to be able to work down behind our lines towards Hellas. I soon found that as far as I was concerned, that course was impossible, and we made for the nearest land. I then became unconscious. When I regained consciousness, I found that I was being carefully tended by a Bavarian officer. He had organised a rescue party which swam out and brought me in, but were unable to find my pilot. I had been 6 hours in the water, and when I was rescued, I was absolutely stiff. After 2 hours, by means of hypodermic injections and brandy, he had restored me to consciousness." Goodwin joined a group of Australian prisoners who would be interned at Afyon, Kararsar, in Turkey for the remainder of the war. As a newspaper report later recalled, it took 5 weeks to reach Constantinople, and they were compelled to pay exorbitant prices for food. They were locked in a small room for a month and had a continuous fight to get sufficient food. They were transferred to various camps and were almost eaten alive by vermin. The officers were robbed left and right and were unanimous that Musloon Bey, the commandant at Afyon Kararsar, should be hanged for his diabolical practices. In the aftermath of the war, Goodwin arrived at Alexandria and made his way to England, where he took a special course in gunnery before returning to Australia in December 1919. Despite his ordeals as a prisoner of war, Goodwin continued his military career between the First and Second World Wars as a member of the Permanent Forces, holding appointments including Camp Adjutant at Enoggera for artillery trainees, Brigade Major in the 1st and 2nd Divisions of the New South Wales Artillery, OC 1st Field Cadre at Royal Australian Artillery, and Adjutant, Quartermaster and Instructor in Administration and Military Law at Royal Military College, Duntroon. On the 9th of December 1926, he married Cynthia Clarkson at St James's Church in Sydney. 2 children were born to the couple, James in 1927 and Mary in 1930. With the advent of the Second World War, Lieutenant Colonel Goodwin, who had been acting as staff officer in Queenscliff, had become part of the 2nd Australian Imperial Force. He was given command of the 2nd 12th Field Regiment, which finished training at Puckapunyal in mid-November of that year and deployed to the Middle East with an establishment of just over 700 personnel. Arriving in Palestine in December 1940, the regiment undertook 3 major battles in the North African campaign, seeing action during the siege of Tobruk, according to the Mercury newspaper, spending more days in action than any other Australian artillery unit, and then the first and second battles of El Alamein. Goodwin's service in the Middle East gained him the Distinguished Service Order, with his citation noting that his sound judgment and imperturbability in action are reflected in the efficiency and reliability of his regiment. His success during operations last year in Tobruk has been followed by splendid service in action in the El Alamein area. His skillful leadership has been of exceptional merit, while his bearing under fire has been an inspiration to all ranks. Goodwin had also acted as Commander Royal Artillery in the 9th Division and Commander of an AIF reinforcement depot, handling an influx of large numbers of new recruits and rendering them fit for service at the front line as quickly as possible. Having returned to Australia in early 1943, Goodwin continued to serve with the 9th Division. Now, holding the rank of Brigadier, in July he embarked for New Guinea, where he would take part in the struggle to retake New Guinea from Japanese forces. After taking Lae in a joint operation with the 7th Division, the 9th Division advanced up the Huon Peninsula, capturing Finschhaven in early October, before Japanese forces launched a counterattack that included air attacks. On the 25th of October, divisional headquarters was straddled by a stick of bombs, and Brigadier Goodwin was killed. Initially buried at Finschhaven, Shirley Goodwin's remains were later reinterred at Lae War Cemetery. Survived by his wife, son and daughter, 49-year-old Goodwin had been mentioned in dispatches 3 times. The badge for his Distinguished Service Order was presented to his widow after his death. He was memorialised by General MacArthur, who stated, "He was an exceptionally able officer who enjoyed the complete confidence both of those who served under him and those who served over him. His death is a severe loss and will be mourned by Americans equally with Australians." Shirley Goodwin's name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Brigadier Shirley Thomas William Goodwin, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
lest we
lest we
forget.
forget.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.